Buddha, or Gautama Buddha, also known as Shakyamuni Buddha, was a great extraordinary spiritual master from ancient India. Born as Prince Siddhartha Gautama in the 5th century BC, he would have naturally inherited the vast wealth of a kingdom. However, the prince left the palace life in search of spiritual knowledge. After years of contemplative seeking, the Buddha attained great enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. He then shared the merits of his practice by providing a method for other sentient beings to be freed from the cycle of death and rebirth. The rich treasury of Buddha's spiritual doctrine on universal truths is studied and revered to this day for its deep wisdom and compassion. The Sutra of Complete Enlightenment, Yuan Jue Jing, is a Buddhist scripture most likely composed in China during the start of the 8th century, with its origin deemed to be from the Chan and Huayan field of study and practice. It is a very popular and influential sutra within the meditation-oriented Buddhist schools of East Asia like Chinese Chan, Korean Seon, and Japanese Zen. A key factor for its popularity is its condensed format that focuses on the most important theoretical issues of the nature of enlightenment. There are 12 chapters and a short convocation in the Sutra of Complete Enlightenment. The convocation section sets out the scene of the sermon and the involvement of key participants. In a deep state of meditative concentration, Samadhi, Buddha and 100,000 great bodhisattvas, with 12 eminent bodhisattvas acting as spokesmen, engage in dialogue with the Buddha on doctrine, practice, and enlightenment. Chapter 1. Manjusri Bodhisattva. Thus have I heard at one time, the Bhagavat entered into the proper sensation, samadhi of supernal great effusion repertory, wherein all the thus adventists were wont to reside and sustain radiantly and majestically, and which is also the sublimate enlightened terror of all multi-beings. In this state, the Buddha was in serene surcease, both in the body and in the mind, which was perfectly equitable with the primal periphery and immanent throughout 10 directions, maintaining the undichotomous tenet and yet in perfect congruity with everything. And therein he manifested various purulence under the undichotomous circumstances, where he was in company with 100,000 great bodhisattvas, namely Manjusri Bodhisattva, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Universal Vision Bodhisattva, Vajragarbha Bodhisattva, Maitreya Bodhisattva, Pure Wisdom Bodhisattva, Ease in Majestic Virtue Bodhisattva, Sound Discernment Bodhisattva, Cleansed of all karmic obstructions Bodhisattva, Universal Enlightenment Bodhisattva, Complete Enlightenment Bodhisattva, Foremost in Virtue and Goodness Bodhisattva, and the like as the leading ones, all of them together with the kindred cohorts entered into Samadhi, residing in the equitable Dharma congregation of the thus Adventists. Thereupon Manjusri Bodhisattva arose in the midst of the assemblage, prostrating himself at the Buddha's feet, perambulated clockwise thrice around the Buddha, genuflected on both knees while joining his palms with the fingers interwoven, and addressed to the Buddha, Great merciful world-venerated one, I would wish that thou wouldst divulge to the congregants here the thus Adventist zone purified dharmic deeds at the primordial cause of terror, as well as impart to us how bodhisattvas would be able to generate a purified mind and to depart from all sorts of fallacies, so that the multi-beings in the future Fantastic who aspire to pursue the major vehicle would not degenerate into devious views. At these words he prostrated himself, with the 5 members of his body prone to the ground, in supplication to the Buddha, and thus did he implore thrice in succession. At that juncture, the world-venerated one imparted to Manjushri Bodhisattva, "It is very good indeed. Virtuous man, it is only the like of thee that couldst inquire of the thus advantaged respecting his dharmic deeds at the primordial causal terra on behalf of all bodhisattvas, as well as of all the multi-beings who aspire after the major vehicle to be able to acquire correct residing sustenance without degenerating into devious views. Now hearken soothly, and I will divulge it to thee." On hearing this holy dicta, Manjushri Bodhisattva was rejoiced, and he and all the other congregants gave ear in silence. "Virtuous man," quoth the Buddha, "the Supreme King of Dharma hath a great tyrannic Bodho, named the consummate enlightenment, whence there emanate spontaneously all the sublimate, veracious thusness, Bodhi, Nirvana, and Paramita, whereby he hath heretofore instructed all bodhisattvas. Whilst all the thus advantaged were still in their primordial causal terror, they all relied on the consummate effulgence upon the purified aspect of enlightenment, whence they were able to eliminate inanity perpetually, so they were able to attain Buddhahood. What doth inanity signify, virtuous man? All the multi-beings, since time immemorial, have been subject to a variety of perversions, whence they are rendered to be like aberrant people, who would transmigrate all over the places in 4 directions, and they would elusively take the 4 elements for the entity of their own physical body, and would take the shadows of the 6 dusts, which they constantly reach and grasp as the image of their own mind. This could be compared to someone who, due to his morbid eyes, should descry either blossoms in the ethereal space or a second moon in the firmament. Virtuous man, in reality, there are no blossoms in the ethereal space. It is simply owing to the delusive tenacity of the morbid eyes that renders it to appear so. Furthermore, due to this selfsame delusive tenacity, not only is he perplexed at the essence of the ethereal space, but he is falsely convinced of the ethereal space as being really the birthplace of the said blossoms. As a consequence, the delusive transmigration of nascence and demise is brought into existence. Hence, it is termed as inanity. Virtuous man, but this inanity is not endowed with a real substantiality. It could be likened to the people perceived in one's dream. Those who appear in one's dream were not entirely nihil to one during the dream, and yet, when one awakens, there is nothing to be obtained. Such a state resembles exactly the sundry ethereal blossoms which are descried and forthwith vanished in the sky. Under such circumstances, one could not profess that there is a definite spot whereinto the blossoms vanish. Wherefore is it so? For the blossoms would not even have a birthplace to begin with, let alone an expiration place. Nevertheless, all the multi-beings should still delusively descry nascences and demises, where there are actually no nascences at all. Thus, they are reduced to the state named the transmigrational nascence demise. Virtuous man, when one practices on the thus advantaged consummate enlightenment in the primordial terra, one shall comprehend that nascences and demises are nothing but ethereal blossoms, and resultingly to this practitioner all transmigrations shall then cease to be, and he shall also perceive that there are neither body nor mind to undergo such nascences and demises. Yet this is not due to any endeavor executed that could make it so, but simply owing to the non-existence of the quintessence, and that which could make such perception and consciousness is akin to the ethereal space as well, that which could comprehend everything being like the ethereal space, yet again is no more than another ethereal blossom-wise phenomenon. However, one still could not ever that the essence of perception and consciousness is altogether nihil. It is only when both existence and non-existence are entirely dispelled that it could come to be entitled as the state of congruity with purified enlightenment. Wherefore is it so? For both existence and non-existence are of the nature of ethereal space, both of which being always unchangeable. For within the thus advantaged repertory there is neither nascence nor demise, neither comprehension nor perception, for they are akin to the quintessence of the dharmic spheres, which is ultimately consummate and imminently pervasive throughout the 10 directions. Such a state comes to be termed as the dharmic cultivation of the primordial terra. Owing to this, the bodhisattva is able to generate the purified mind in the major vehicle. If the multi-beings in the fin de siècle could cultivate themselves in compliance with this, never shall they degenerate into any devious views. At that juncture, the world-venerated one, wishing to reiterate this import, divulged this gatha. Mantra 3. It behooves thee to comprehend that all the thus advantaged, right from their primal causal terra, by dint of their noetic consciousness, have thoroughly comprehended inanity, which they realize to be like ethereal blossoms, whence they could be free from transmigrations. It is also like the personages viewed in a dream, who are unobtainable when one awakens. The enlightening faculty is exactly like the ethereal space, for its being equitable, impregnable, and unchangeable when one's consciousness thus pervades all the spheres in 10 directions. Forthwith is one to attain Buddhahood. There are no localities whereinto the illusions vanish, nor is there anything obtained at the fulfillment of body, for the original nature has been consummate. By virtue of this Dharma, all the bodhisattvas are able to generate the Bodhi heart, and all fin de siècle multi-beings, by cultivating on this, would be able to be exempted from devious views.